10 years after the crash, the video game industry was getting back into the swing of things, mainly thanks to the blood, sweat and tears both Nintendo and Sega put into their work. But in September of 1993, Mortal Kombat hit home consoles, with the Sega version of the game featuring a code that would allow you to activate the blood, originally removed from non-arcade versions of the game for the sake of marketability. Sega allowed blood on their system via code mainly because they market themselves as the more mature console for the older kids, scheming to give themselves the edge over Nintendo. Sega didn't expect to gather much scorn from this choice, seeing as it fits alongside their branding, but people were not happy. By the time Mortal Kombat came out, games like Wolfenstein, Splatterhouse and Leisure Suit Larry were already causing an outcry for their mature themes. Those prior games made it abundantly clear they weren't for children, while Mortal Kombat's cover didn't seem too far removed from other kids' games at the time. And age ratings were still not an industry standard. Things got so heated in fact that it went to court, not only for Mortal Kombat but Night Trap. Night Trap was in trouble because it promoted gratuitous violence and sexual aggression against women.
Strong overtones of sexual violence.
Quick summary. Night Trap is a game you have to stop vampire robbers from invading a house, so if you fail to do so, something like this could happen. The claim was that the game was egging players on to do what are definitely sexual things to this girl.
And what you've done is picked a particular segment of that game. Let me clarify. A winning effort within Night Trap saves the women. Your job as the player is to identify the villains and to trap them. If you are a good player, you keep the villains from the women and men who are potential victims.
Sega actually tried implementing an age rating system a few months before the hearing, but this was just seen as a knee-jerk reaction.
This is a copy of the packaging. There was no rating on this game at all when the game was introduced. Small children bought this at Toys R Us, and he knows that as well as I do.
More hearings were held later in '94 after Doom released, a few years before it supposedly influenced Eric Harris and Dylan Klebold to commit the Columbine High School massacre. It was eventually agreed upon that in order to be sold, games would require a rating based on its content.
Our objective is to design a system that will be easy for everyone to accept, for the industry to use, and for consumers to understand.
And thus the Entertainment Software Rating Board was formed in America. 5 years after Europe did the same thing. This controversy actually affected the industry in a positive way. Making age ratings mandatory meant consumers were no longer misled of the game's content. Regardless of the region, the ratings are clear to everyone. It's no difference how film and television does it. It's a good thing this happened at such an early point, because with how games have evolved over the years, a parent could potentially purchase a game for their child unaware of the contents. That's not the case, thankfully. Parents don't buy mature games for their kids anymore. How could they? There's a rating system now. Parents know exactly what they're purchasing. It's not like they blindly buy games that their children ask for, then complain what it's doing to their child despite the fact that they consciously bought it without analysing the contents first. That would be ridiculous.
If the parent is available, we let them know completely what's in the game, if it's due to violence, language, drug use.
One of the current day excuses for kids getting access to these games is that because games can be bought digitally now, kids can get around the fact that they aren't 18 by lying about their age on their account and buy these games using gift cards. And this is why current hardware developers implement parental controls in their systems. If kids are playing games, then their parents should be monitoring what they are playing and making an effort to prevent their children from getting access to content they shouldn't. Now, let's discuss the face of controversial video games. Rockstar's multi-billion-dollar franchise portraying a sick and twisted parody of the American dream that pulls back the curtains to satirize the reality of life in America obviously generates a lot of mixed opinions. One side praising it for its bold socio-political commentary and dark sense of humour, with each game tackling a different era from different perspectives. While the other side either feeling like it's too on the nose, feel personally attacked, or refuse to look at it from any other perspective than... morally wrong? On October 2004, Grand Theft Auto San Andreas released to shattering praise and profits. So of course, eyes were all over it, and in early 2005 it was discovered that the game featured a graphic sex minigame. Only taking so long to be discovered because it was actually inaccessible without altering the game's files. And lo and behold, our innocent game about murdering, robbing, drugs, and corrupt law enforcement that satirizes San Francisco and Los Angeles in the 90s has been tainted by the worst offense of all: consensual intercourse. To make a long story short, people weren't happy. There were lawsuits, riots, the game's rating was changed. Jack Thompson said a lot without actually saying anything.
Harvard and Indiana universities have determined that these games are actually processed in an adolescent and in a teen in the part of the brain in which copycatting is likely to occur.
And Hillary Clinton began a system entitled the Family Entertainment Protection Act.
This bill will prohibit the sale of violent and sexually explicit video games to minors,
which arguably should have been law when the ESRB was formed. Rockstar eventually released newer versions of the game, with the file patched out to get the original rating back. But that wasn't good enough. A group of moral panics entitled The Peaceaholics issued demands to Rockstar after the trailer for Bully was dropped. They claimed that the title glorified bullying and was a sick homage to the Columbine brothers. The demands of the group included not releasing Bully under any circumstances, volunteer to sell its violent, sexually explicit games in adult stores only, let parents return Grand Theft Auto for a full refund until they do a national awareness campaign to educate parents of content and possible effects, create a fund for victims of unauthorized use of a motor vehicle and carjacking, make a national apology for misleading and lying to children, parents, and legislators about their intentions and causing insurance premiums to skyrocket, and give a written response within 5 business days of receiving these demands. It was only until Bully actually released and people played it that it became abundantly clear how much of this was fabricated outcry. Games are often bashed for being violent, having offensive stereotypes, being overly sexual, being sexist, having inappropriate marketing, and while some of it is justified, some claims are superficial and assuming, or these games are exactly what they're attacked for. Because not every game is meant to appeal to everybody.
My 3 favourite games are Friday the 13th, Among Us, and the Batman Arkham series.
Well, some games that I'm playing right now, such as Monster Hunter, Dark Souls 3, and a more obscure indie Forager game.
Well, I really like The Last of Us, so Lara Croft, Rise of the Tomb Raider. I really love those kind of adventure games. Little games like Fall Guys and Mario and stuff like that.
I like Friday the 13th because it kind of makes you feel like you're one of the counselors actually in the movie, because you walk around trying to stop Jason, trying to escape him. And you can also play as Jason sometimes. It's like a hide and seek kind of thing.
Monster Hunter I like because it's so complex, yet once you master it, it's an amazing feeling. The variety of weapons means you can't master them all, so you have to pick a few to learn and use, and they all play differently.
Well, the adventure games I really like because pretty much the character development, you get to go on like this long journey with the characters, with like Joel and Ellie from Last of Us, and also Lara Croft. You get to really connect with that character.
As for Among Us, I like the effect it uses where it's actually in a spaceship and you have the sound making it accurate, and the meeting buttons having to find the culprit.
One game that I think particularly needs spotlighting is Dark Souls, purely because of how well FromSoft, the developers, have made it. The world feels so alive yet dead at the same time because it's in ruin.
I think they're just really fun games that you can just play whenever, just to take your mind off things and stuff like that.
As time goes by, video games slowly become a more respected medium. But why? Everything goes through this transition of being the new thing that is hated by older generations for corrupting the newer ones.
Reasons on rock and roll music and why I preach against it.
But by the time the next thing comes out and the newer generation isn't new anymore, what was once new is now old and therefore more respected. What's new now is different, therefore bad.
Every time someone does something wrong, they blame the media.
People will respond to negativity more than positivity, unfortunately.
It's happened like throughout all of media pretty much. They've done it with films and they've done it with music, and now they're doing it with games to try and cover up for what's really happening.
It's a vicious cycle. It doesn't have to be this way though. We should appreciate the hard work, love and care that goes into this art form. One that aims to inspire and entertain in ways no other medium can. Any medium is art at the end of the day. Do we really want to censor art?